Hi there, beautiful soul. In the past few weeks, I've been getting very often the question about how to deal with the fear that comes with a chronic disease like ME/CFS. These can be fears related to symptoms, related to um, situation that might change, inability to take care of yourself, the inability to get out of bed, future scenario, so to speak. Crashes and well, everything can be very frightful. And maybe you're already feeling fear when you listen to me right now. Very often when fear is there, but we don't really feel it, we automatically get stressed. And this fear can also rechannel itself into different kinds of symptoms, like fatigue, for example. So it is good to understand that most of these fears were already there. We just project them on a possible situation or a possible scenario or the current things that are currently happening. And in all cases, we should embrace these triggers. We should really feel it. Because if you try to outrun a fear, it's impossible because the fear is inside of you. And another word for stress is resistance. And our stress bucket, when it's completely full, we experience all kinds of symptoms as well in our body. And especially if they are related to emotions and we don't even feel the emotions, then we can experience all kinds of symptoms and we're sort of a victim of capricious ups and downs. So instead, let's feel the fears, but also maybe see how old they are and where they come from. And if you're really able to reconnect with those fears, then you might be really feeling like a little child shivering for fear. Like in my final moments of ME/CFS, I just had every once in a while some fatigue, and then I noticed it was fear. Fear was the last emotion that I had to resolve. And I felt like little Daniel shivering and shaking and trembling for fear. And that part had to be reintegrated in myself. And a chronic disease is actually perfect for this. Because every time you have a symptom, it might be something that you need to reconnect with. Or every time that you are getting triggered, it is actually a good moment to feel it through. And as we said as well before, like every time we are triggered by fear, or triggered, our fear is being triggered, it is actually because of a future scenario, in this case, what might have happened, because the current moment is never really that scary. Well, in some cases, but when you're just going by the day, the future scenario is actually of the present moment is actually the least scary thing of all. So it's the future. The future everything can happen in the future. And other things that can trigger fears are as well thoughts. And a thought might not be real at all. So it is as well a very good opportunity to really dive into your own belief systems and think like, which one is true and which one is not. Because every time when we feel, maybe unconsciously, a fear, and we try to run away from it, we can, for example, go doom scrolling. It's fight or flight, and it doesn't make things better. It makes you only more wired. It makes things much worse. But then while doom scrolling, you can find something that is a possible strategy, just like people have been doing in the past, before a chronic disease started, before their stress bucket was completely full. And you can engage with any kinds of activity, which also can be, obsessively thinking about your diet and punishing yourself for not being able to meet your standards about your diet. And then those things are as well coping mechanisms to suppress fear, but it only enhances it. So every time you walk away from a fear, it gets bigger. And every time you create more stress, you get more symptoms. So yes, there is a fear that things might get worse. Yes, there is a fear that you might fall back into an old pattern. Because, well, let's say it like this. When I started having chronic fatigue syndrome, I had all these fears. And I read and saw some videos about the worst case scenario, not being able to get out of bed, for example. And that actually happened to me, and I wasn't able to talk, and I wasn't able to listen anymore, and I wasn't able to blink my eyes. But then in those moments, when there was nothing to fear anymore, I felt like a relief, and the fears were gone because it was already happening. And I wasn't, well, there just comes a moment where you decide from there is nothing more fearful than this in the future because, well, you already live it. And that's liberating. And then to see that all of this time I was afraid of something, and by the fear, by repressing the fear and therefore engaging myself in coping mechanisms, I created the exact place where I did not want to be. But as soon as I was there, it wasn't scary anymore. So, well, this wasn't a one-time thing because after that, I moved up, I got better. But then I was scared again of going back. So it's this whole dynamic of the fears and the not fears. And a lot of these coping mechanisms like pacing or diet can soothe us in a way that we are kind of safe while we follow the strategy. So it has its place. But I don't think it's the full cure. And therefore, when you have all these fears, I recommend you going to my website. There is a meditation there called Reconnecting with Fear. It's about the worst case scenario and really feeling it through. Because very often once you felt a fear through, it's completely gone. And then nothing can trigger it. And then you don't have to be in resistance. So you have actually released stress, fear, it's hidden fear, but you also don't make new fears by trying to run away from it. And that's a very good thing. So you can visit my website, danielvanloosbroek.com, and there's also a recovery program there, which is all based by donations. All my work is based by donations, so if you feel like supporting me, then that would be welcome. Then I can keep continuing the work to help people with a chronic disease. Because now that I am on the other side of recovery, I noticed that I could have recovered much, much faster. But I was stubborn, and sometimes I needed someone to point me towards the things that I did not want to see. So if you need someone like that as well, you can book me for a coaching session, and I'd love to help you. Bye.